Hey everyone, this is Ashley. I wanted to give you a heads up that we experienced some technical difficulties during this episode with the recording. So the video is affected in some spots, the audio is affected in some spots. It cut off the recording early at the end, so we don't really have a smooth transition out. We are very sorry about that, but we are also very excited to share this episode because it's the first time we've recorded with our friends Patty and Al from the Professional Lovers channel. We had a really good conversation, so I think there's a lot of still great stuff in there. So yeah, just please be aware of that. Again, we're very sorry. We're working on it. And please enjoy the conversation and everyone have a happy new year. See ya. We are very excited to be covering season 12 of Married at First Sight. We just watched the Matchmaking Special, but today we have a very special recording because we are spending some time today with Patty and Al from the Professional Lovers channel, who cover Married at First Sight to talk about topics related to relationships. So welcome, Patty and Al. We are so excited to have you here.
Thank you. We are glad to be here.
And you guys have been married for 27 years, am I correct?
7 years. So it's January 1, which means we're headed to 28.
There we go. And that's a big number. You got like years of experience of marriage behind us here to help us all these conversations.
Yeah, all my experiences.
You and my parents have 4-day difference in your wedding dates. My parents were 28 years on December 28th.
Okay. Awesome.
All right, so we just covered the Matchmaking Special, we just watched it a couple of days ago. So we actually meet the couples that we'll be seeing go through this experience in season 12. We have 5 couples. So first of all, this is the first time we're seeing anybody at all. We're really getting introduced to them for the first time. So Patty and Al, I'm just curious your first impressions of just the whole group for the season 12 crew.
For me, I didn't have as many red flag vibes with this group as I had with the last group. I had more questions with more of the individuals who got matched last season than I do for this season. So for me, that's pretty good.
Similar here. As individuals and how they presented themselves, I basically only had one concern, really.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk a lot about that concern because I'm very interested to hear who it is.
I don't know. For me, I definitely liked the new twists that they're bringing in. So last season, I really liked that we had a little more like thought diversity and just like a little more personality on the show. And we had different people. And this season, I get to see that even more. You know, we have more international representation. We have someone who has been divorced, and we also have an interracial relationship.
Yeah.
So I think that's really great that the show is progressing forward and saying like this is not one way fits all. And so overall, I really liked that they're like taking the steps forward to see like what other kind of relationships really do work. But I also had some concerns, some about like couples together, even though I like them individually, and others about like individuals that I'm worried like bringing that into a relationship could be something, but we'll see.
So I think this always happens to me each season. In the beginning, I feel very optimistic, and hearing the experts, I noticed this season they did a better job of kind of bringing us into their world of what they were thinking for each couple, which is great. And hearing that, I'm like, okay, I see what you're thinking. I see why these two people were paired. I'm worried 2 episodes from now, I'm going to think the exact opposite. And just like, no, what are you thinking? No.
You know that.
And it always does.
Well, it's not like NASCAR. We're not going for the wrecks. I mean, we're looking at what the process is and the positivity that the outcome will bring.
I mean, and realistically, you always have the expectation that a relationship or marriage is going to work. Yeah. I don't think anybody gets in thinking, oh, I'll give it a couple of weeks. I mean, no, I hope not. I think most people are hoping the marriage is going to work. So we think the same way, right, Agu? We want the relationships to work. So it's going to be optimistic.
Fingers. Always optimistic first. I did have a few things that could potentially be red flags that I noticed, but um, at the end of the day, I'm sure it's how its personalities and how they interact. So yeah, excited. I'm glad that we finally get to Married at First Sight back. It's been a few months.
I think similar to you guys, Patty and Al, there were a few like red flags that came up for me. I think my interest is always in why people want like their answer to why they want to be a part of this grand experiment. And I felt like some people, their responses were not what I would think is probably the best attitude to have going into a marriage. And also like a lot of people that are like, I don't know. I think again, it's just hard to tell this early on because it does feel like I'm just like watching a job interview because people are putting on their best face. They're, they're doing their best to show the very best side of themselves, but humans are complex and we have bad days and we don't look great all the time and, things are messy. And so I think I'm interested to see how flexible everyone will be going into the season and going through these situations, especially with the layer of the pandemic right now, where it's going to require a lot of compromise and a lot of talking through things and not having really rigid expectations about who your partner is going to be. And that's what I'm worried about because I didn't get that energy from a lot of people. It kind of felt like, oh, they're going to pair me with the perfect person who is going to make me happy. And it's going to be, fairy tale butterflies from now on. So that always worries me, but we'll see. Once they actually get into it, it's always different. So to get into it, we have, let's start with Vincent and Brianna. So Vincent is 27, Brianna is 28. We met them. I guess I'll just open it up to the floor. Did anyone have some big feelings about them as individuals or as a couple?
Dominican. They're Dominican.
Of course, an amazing thing.
Jump right into that, right, my belle?
Yeah. Right away, I was like, woo woo, we got the Dominican on the show. Yes, exactly. Which means he is going to be an amazing person. I am not biased at all when I say that.
Believe it or not, I picked up on it. I mean, again, I'm from the Bronx, so I can pick up on accents, especially Latin accents. Patty wasn't aware. I mean, she didn't notice.
Yeah, I didn't get that at all.
And I kind of felt that he's definitely Latino. So I think that'll be interesting. I mean, his mild-mannered demeanor, was something that I think any woman could appreciate. Not all women necessarily like, but I think that he brings something to a relationship that is not typical with the stereotypical male. And that's an emotional or a caring or a compassionate demeanor.
So was it just me or did anybody feel the same from last season's couple where the guy was very mild-mannered and sensitive and the woman was, I don't open up easily with affection. And I mean, the same script.
Miles and Karen 2.0.
Because that's what that's how she described herself, right? I'm kind of closed off at first and I'm not, extremely affectionate. I'm very picky. That's kind of a red flag word for me. And, would like my husband to make more money than me. I mean, so I don't know, I got some of the same vibe from her as from the similar couple from last season.
And I agree because for me, so definitely picky is automatically a red flag for when someone says that. And it kind of gave me the vibe. So not only did she say picky, but like you mentioned, making more money. That's a very quick to judgment vibe. Like Chris, for example, he makes 6 figures and that's like check of the box, right? Like, does he make more money than me or not? But like Vincent was talking about being an entrepreneur, a business owner, and that is a hard career to get into. I mean, like, you have people here on the podcast that can tell you that very clearly is not an easy job or career to pursue.
Right.
And I think for her, it's going to be, I am a little concerned that she's going to be a person that's quick to judge, whereas Vincent is going to need someone who is supportive, accepting, like open to the process. And I worry that could clash a little bit.
Because didn't Vincent say that he doesn't have a degree?
Yeah, no, he doesn't have to.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So again, because I think she was the engineer. I think. So again, when you say I'm picky, and like you said, if you're quick to rush to judgment, then you could judge the fact that, oh, he didn't go to college. He doesn't, he's not really on my level, from that angle. And, and then use that to judge whether or not he's an acceptable match or not,
Well, actually, I look at that as, creating a balance. I mean, when two people are just too similar or so similar, it tends to be somewhat boring. Whereas I think that, not
we're boring.
No, well, well, the way we started, but now thinking about it, the way we started off, my wife, degreed, aspirations, career, whole bit. I was a grown man lying about my associate's degree, but now I have 2 degrees. But it was a situation where we were coming from 2 different sides of the coin, but our personalities and characters and, our DNA blended exceptionally well, which I believe in the case of Vincent and Brianna, there's potential. I believe that there's potential there, because even as picky or specific as Brianna may tend to be, I think Vincent can bring to the relationship an element that will allow her to kind of let down her wall a little bit and enjoy life. Everything isn't a challenge and a thing to conquer. And I'm not saying a person, but anybody that's so rigid, they're just so focused that, there's side mirrors on a car for a purpose. There's a rear view mirror for a purpose. Not that that's what you pay attention to, but you have other options to look at to just balance off things.
Yeah, I like that perspective a lot. And like the way that you can look at someone like Vincent and from maybe a very rigid perspective, be like, okay, he doesn't have a degree. I mean, I don't know like what his financial situation is, but he seems to have his own business and be doing all right. He's supporting himself. Like, you can look at that as like, oh, he doesn't have a degree and he's just like trying to figure it out in the world. Or you can look at it as like, he doesn't have a degree, but he's like so resourceful. He's created a business out of nothing and has that, like, I think to go into like an entrepreneurial type role, it's just you're a professional problem solver, which is like basically what an engineering degree is, but you paid for it, like it's, and so, yeah, like looking at it is like, this is a man who can make, something awesome out of kind of nothing. And he can see the potential in things and he's creative and he's persistent and he can, Mabelle's just like, yes, the Dominican, he's awesome. I can see your smile over there. But like, I think that's a great quality. It just depends on if she can kind of like not make up her opinion of him too quickly.
Because not having a degree doesn't mean not learned.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Doesn't mean not accomplished. Exactly. Right. One thing I did actually like want to say I thought was in a good way. So coming from a Dominican family and coming from a Hispanic like culture, like I see a lot of minority friends that are like me that have an upbringing that says someone to be successful, you have to pursue a STEM degree, science, technology, education, engineering, math, And that means like very much this is successful and this is not successful. And growing up in this culture, I really have come to know that like there is a mentality that is, this is what success looks like. And therefore like it's really hard not to pursue that because like peer pressure, like you want to live up to family expectations, like you want to make your family happy. And so I'm a first generation here, and my parents didn't really have the option to think about all these other, career aspirations that they wanted to when they were in DR. And then being here, like, I got to think more about that because they wanted me, like, to really embrace the American culture and be like, this is not only what you have the opportunity to do, but you are also an American, you're a Dominican American, and you are someone who can really pursue different passions. And thankfully, my parents are very open and accepting of that, but not all Hispanic families are. And so I really applaud Vincent for being someone to think for himself and be like, hey, I understand that I can create success in a STEM degree, but I understand that I can also create success in something else. And I am sure, this is now me assuming, I am sure he has gotten adversity from that to be like, I mean, he said it with his ex, like, you're not gonna like go to college, like you're not gonna like be a doctor, you're not gonna be a dentist, like et cetera, et cetera. It's like, no, like this is what I'm gonna do. This is what I want to do. This is how I'm gonna be successful. And so like he already is, I would say, like that speaks volumes for who he is as a person, that he has pursued this lifestyle and this career path.
Wow, there's so many good points here. I felt like I was just taking in knowledge left and right here. I really love that you mentioned Miles because I didn't think that while watching it initially, but now that you mention it, you're right. I see so many similarities there. And like they were a successful couple. It didn't feel like it while we were watching, but they're together and they're happy. So I guess it's not necessarily bad to try to bring elements of that. So speaking of Miles, in the beginning, I remember Karen saying like he was so nice. She wasn't sure if it was real. Like it felt like he was saying all the right things. And
genuine.
Didn't feel genuine, right? And I didn't get that while watching the Miles and Karen season, but I got that a little bit with Vincent, where it's just he's saying all the right things, like, oh yeah, I donated all my shoes to a person in need.
Shoes.
And that is amazing. That's a great thing.
Exactly.
Are you saying so the fact that he had so many that he could donate?
No, that he donated shoes.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, wearable shoes that he wore. And I mean, he had a closet that, he seemed to be a dresser for just about all occasions. But I noticed that he only had black shoes. That's what it appeared to me. And, it made me think that, you can't wear black shoes with everything that you have in your closet. And come to find out, he donated shoes. And that's admirable to me. And that's me.
And yet, Agu, you're saying that made you kind of question.
So yes, I'm. It's so admirable that it's so admirable. Oh, I mispronounced that word.
Yeah, we got this.
Admirable. But it's just the timing of that. I always get a part of me is, like, are you saying this now because you're going to be on a television show where people are going to see you and make quick judgments? And that's unfair because he did the thing. He did the great deed. And I want to do a better job of taking him, at his word. But I could see that being similar to the Miles and Karen season. I think she's also going to have to be willing to do that. Of when he says this is how he feels, he doesn't have an ulterior motive. Like he's coming from this perspective. And as a viewer, I'm already trying to remind myself that I could see that being even more difficult for her. So that's a potential red flag, but a good one. Like he's a very nice, caring person. The other thing was when they were, telling him that he was selected. He happened to be working out at that occasion, and he's like, "Yeah, I want to be looking good." And like, again, like he could be doing this all the time, right? Like there's no, this could be truthful, but it's not a coincidence that when people are in the dating mood that they try to work more on their physical appearance and working out and stuff like that. And that doesn't, like, if you don't have that lifestyle, that's not something that you can maintain. So it's things like that where I think I'm similar to you. I think they're going to be great because he's that soft place where she can be all go, 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 and then he can bring in the fun and be more
Relax.
caring. And it seems like relax. It seems like he's going to be very affectionate, which is similar to Miles and Karen. Like, that's a great thing. I think that's good to have a person in a relationship who is that way. But yeah, I'm hoping for them. And then the entrepreneur part, great point. You're totally right. Professional solver. My concern with that is similar. We have many entrepreneurs and people who are in that lifestyle. And like you said, it's very hard. And it's also one of those things that you can claim without doing the work. Like with the degree, you had to go through the process. You had to get the education. You had to take the test. You had to do. I know a lot of people who just throw entrepreneur on their bio. And it's like, have you gone through the process? Do you have your LLC? Do you have there's work that goes into this. And every time I hear that, I get scared because it seems like it's supporting him. So it seems like he's doing it the right way. But it's one of those things that you could just claim and then you're not really living that life. So I'm rooting for them. I think she is adorable and super great teeth. And yeah, I just
we were commenting on how white her teeth are. I was like, how'd you do that?
It was great. And just so I think they have that perfect balance of she's going to be a little bit more analytical and he's going to be the heart. And I think that could work quite a bit.
I'm curious how their conversations about money are going to go, because that's going to come up at some point, where if she's an engineer, that's a very stable career. She's going to have a very regular check. She knows what she's going to be making, what's on her tax returns. If he's an entrepreneur, that's going to be a little bit more variable. There might be, it's kind of like the feast and famine, depending on your industry, where sometimes there's a lot coming in, sometimes there's less. And
it's
so
the exact same thing. So you just
yeah. yeah. And everyone's approach to money is different. And the way that we think about money has a lot to do with how you were brought up and kind of your story about what kind of person is rich, what kind of person is poor. Does that have an effect on their morality? And that can get really tangled and messy when I think it can just be money and it's just a tool and a resource to live your life in a way that you want to, etc. So I think specifically for them, I'm very interested to see how that conversation goes.
Because also with her saying, I want him to make more money than me, that sounds like a value where, the man should be the main provider. And so therefore I need to know that he can take care of me and our household by making more than I do. So yes, that goes back to you, Ashley, thinking, wondering what the conversation is going to be like, because he's an auto broker, right? Is it that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm an entrepreneur and, I've been at it for 3 years and, it creeps up and up, but, we had to take a big cut, in our household finances for me to be able to do that. And so even if you are working hard, right?
Yeah.
You never know. You get a lot of business at one time and then it dries up for a certain, you never know, where you're going to fall in that. So that will be a real interesting conversation.
And that and that makes me think about where in his entrepreneurial journey he is. So it sounds like he is newer in his entrepreneurial journey and he therefore is still working towards that. But from, her standpoint, she wants somebody who already accomplished, who's already there. And that journey to get there for an entrepreneur is really hard. And he mentioned it. He needs someone who believes in it. He needs someone who supports him. And if she can't be there in that journey, that's really hard. Like, hey, like, absolutely. If he were already past that, if he were an entrepreneur for 10 years now and he is like established, she'd be like, hey, yeah, like, I'm like, bring me on board. Like, please, like, you know, you're already making more than me. You're already accomplished. You're already established. But now is a very critical point in his journey that it's going to be hard for her, I think.
And I wonder how that plays into gender roles, because I wonder if she's saying, I want him to make more than me, because there's a security in that of like, if my career is affected by having children, which it likely will be for women, then she has his, you know, they have his financial resources to lean on in that time, because, you know, she wouldn't be able to work as much or need to take a break or something. So, you know, does it go into like the parenting part of it? I always wonder why that's a requirement. Like, why do you want your partner to make more than you? Mm-hmm. Is it that you want to be able to kick up your feet at some point and be like, I want to figure out something else to do for work and like kind of have some space to do that and still be comfortable? Or is it something else? So a lot of things to keep an eye on with them.
And all those are exceptionally valid points, you know, and in listening, I'm thinking about things that not necessarily create red flags, but they're discussion points that make a show like this a little more challenging, you know, because you don't have the opportunity to have these conversations
beforehand, right?
To saying I do. Yeah. You know, these are things that is after the fact that, you know, hopefully the professionals have taken into consideration. And to a lot of what you had been saying, Ogu, you know, we have to understand that this is a show. So production is going to take the pieces that become most appealing to, you know, the human, whatever it is that they try to attach to make a selection appealing or maybe even controversial to a certain degree. You know,
have to have drama.
Exactly. You know, but for the simple fact that, you know, they took a picture with him in front of the type of car that he was in front of, I was like, okay, if this is how you are brokering and this may be one of the items that you have on the market and this has been your history, I don't know for how long, well, then you're on track, you know. So how well you do it, we don't know. But those little components that we get to see are production providing those elements to allow us to make a determination, which will be the whole story.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So.
Yeah, it reminds me of Michael from season 10, from Michael and Mika, where there's all these things about him being the yoga instructor and like things that could have been fact checked. And it seemed like it was real for a while. The miles on his car, like he had a whole list of things that he felt like he had to kind of puff himself up with, but like none of it was real.
Unfortunate.
All right. Yeah. All right. So let's hop over to Jacob and Haley.
I was going to go on defending him, but it's not going to happen. We don't have enough time for that.
That's a separate episode. All right. So Jacob and Haley. So Jacob is 38 and Haley is 28. So we have a big age difference, right? So Jacob is kind of like a self-described nerd. Like he's like kind of a nerd and a gym bro. Like if we were to give him two stereotypes, where like he seems very playful and creative, but also like very, he seems a little bit more reserved. And Haley seems to just be like, she's been single for a while, is, you know, looking forward to having some help finding a match since she had some like bad experiences with relationships in the past that caused her to like want to stay on her own for a while. First impressions, what do y'all think of each of them?
Well, again, Haley's been a bridesmaid, 14 times? So I can imagine her feeling a certain type of pressure. But her as an individual, I looked at her as being a certain matured element that I thought she brought that did not indicate her being 28. You know, and again, that's just my observation. But On the flip side, Jacob, at the age of 38, my question was the fact that he appeared to be a gamer. And that in itself was like, really? Okay, that's interesting. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but to me, to find yourself in a particular situation, when you minimize your environment, it seems that you lessen the broadening of your perspectives and, going out and seeing people and, engagement, so that was a little interesting to me, to be, approaching 40 and you're like twiddling your thumbs. That's just my perspective.
He did describe himself as a hermit, which means that he does spend a lot of time with his dogs and himself on his beach.
Yeah.
In front of his pool.
He got his backyard.
With his man cave.
I
know. at almost 40.
But
if she moves in there, I have a feeling they're going to have to change a lot of things. Like you're not, the pool, the backyard, awesome. I have a feeling she's going to want to limit the man cave size, and it happens to all of us.
And then when you look at her, having been single for 7 years, a bridesmaid 14 times, she described herself as, I do what I want, when I want. I have some walls up. I do think they're ready to come down, but she had walls up. I got a little sense of she's been as self-absorbed because, when you are single and you are older,
you get set in your ways.
I get to do what I want when I want. I remember having that feeling. I mean, when we met, we were both in our 30s. So, I was single a long time too. And I understand what that feels like, where you don't have to answer anybody. You don't have to include anybody. You don't have to think about anybody. You go where you want. You buy what you want. You do what you want. And unless you're really ready to negotiate that difference and compromise that you have to negotiate if you do get married, then we will see what the maturity level really is. And really for both of them, because they have been doing their own thing, their own way for a long time. And it's going to require, as Agu said, change.
And that was one thing. So in seasons past, Ashley has brought to my attention, like someone thinking about fitting into their lifestyle versus like accommodating lifestyles.
Or creating a new lifestyle.
Yeah. And that's something that I was a little worried about with Haley, because through the reasons she described wanting a partner and how a partner is going to fit with her, that's what I heard. I heard her saying, like, someone to bring with me, someone to do these things with me, and someone to come along. And I didn't hear as much accommodating and bringing together as I would have liked to hear. And I'm wondering if that's going to play a part. I mean, I think, Jacob is very accommodating. He's been thinking more about like, what is it that I want in a partner and like how I can be for a partner. But I definitely have like some concerns from there too. But I'm interested to see if that's going to be something that eventually she gives way to a little bit. Maybe she was just talking it up for now, and that's not really how she's going to play it out. But this will be interesting to see.
Because she did use the phrase, someone to travel with me.
Yeah.
Which again made me think back to season 11 and Olivia.
Yeah, you have to fit in with my group of friends perfectly, or else, that
sounds like a pet.
Exactly. Not a man, a pet for sure. I felt very similar in terms of them together. I have to be honest, a part of me just eye tests, just looking at them standing next to each other or looking at them side to side. That looks like couples I've seen a lot. Like a part of my brain is like, oh, that's fine. You see them all the time. They look like that. Which I know is super superficial. So no insight there, just going off of the eye test. But the fact that his diet is so
Specific.
steady,
Rigid.
yeah, it's very
Wasn't he
interesting.
the one that
And
just does steak and eggs?
steak and eggs,
Yeah.
steak and eggs for multiple years, and it seems like he was in the bodybuilding, or still is in the bodybuilding world. So that's a lot of discipline, a lot of pushing, just a lot of pushing yourself. So I could see. It's funny when they mention that he's an IT. I see a lot of him in some of the people that I work with. It's just that level of, oh, I don't like mowing the yard, so I'm just going to put a beach back there. Like problem solving on everything. Like it's, oh, I feel like it's just me in the house. I will get 3 dogs. Like it's like a certain level of problem solving where there's a little less nuance. It's a little bit more black and white. And I think that might be their situation. I'm getting elements of that. That being said, I do think he seems like he's in the mindset of let's make this work. And I think sometimes that is very, very helpful in something like this. So I could see, let's say she is a little bit more set in her ways and just takes a little bit more time to open up and change her lifestyle. I could see him hanging in there for the journey. He kind of mentioned, he's like, yeah, I want to be in a relationship by 40, da da da. Like it sounds like he's going to try his best to make this work. Problem is, it might not be the right relationship, and you're trying to make it work, but he's going to try his best. So
it seems that he's had a slightly longer journey, and in that life experience, you become a little more patient, with certain things, and understanding that in a relationship there's give and take, and he may have a little more willingness than she may have at 28. So
yeah, definitely. The age difference is quite a bit though. So I'm with everyone on the hesitation there. My parents had an age difference of 10 years. So, I know that it can work for firsthand experience. But you have to make an effort. Like it's different generations. So that's going to be a factor. But weirdly, I think I feel more confident about them than some of the other couples that we have this season. So, Ashley, what do you think?
I heard that.
Yeah.
I like that you brought up Patty and Al, the not Henry and Olivia. I keep saying them together as if they're dating now, and they're not. Olivia and Brett is what I meant to say. But like where it's kind of like plugging someone into your lifestyle, and like it's like you're saying a pet, that's kind of what you would expect. Like, oh, I got a new cat, like it likes my friends, it's cool, and that's not, it's completely different than a partner and, merging two lives together. And I think I see some of that same rigidity between both Jacob and Haley, where I get the sense from Jacob that he doesn't as much follow like the path in life that he really wants, but more like these are the things I should do to like kind of be okay and fit in. Like he brought up how when he was younger, he very briefly said when he was younger, he was like a little bit heavier, and like that he kind of started doing the bodybuilding and all this stuff where like, this is the type of man I should be, that like no one type of body is correct. We are all different and beautiful in our own ways. But that seemed to be the way that he felt like he had to be okay. And, continued on with that. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but that's what I noticed. And then things like, it seems like he loves his, virtual worlds of video games and all these different things, but he kind of tempers that with like, well, I'm only doing it a little bit, or like, it's kind of like just a part of my life, but I have all these other activities. So it's not the only thing that I do. And like talking about even when he said like, well, I was kind of, thinking, oh man, you're getting close to 40. You should really be married by now. So again, it's kind of that should mentality of like, I should be at this point in life, but I'm not. And And I don't know if he's really asking himself, do I want this? Is this something that I want? Or is it something that, like, I see a lot of people around me who have partners and they seem to be married at this stage and have children potentially or whatever. And so, like, that's my number one concern with both of them is, like, do you both want this, or do you feel the pressure of everybody around you? And, like, either way, that's fine, but just be honest with yourself. Because if we're forcing ourselves into a little corner of what we think we're supposed to be okay, then you're never going to be happy. It's exhausting. You're not being yourself. Like, there's no joy in that. To me, that's the whole point of relationships, is the joy that comes with it, of sharing the very benign and boring moments of life with someone else. And it's, better because of that. So again, we'll see. I don't know, but that's kind of the feeling I get from both of them, that it's kind of just like, well, this is the next step, so let's do it.
Well, you know what? It's funny because very often with this whole married at first sight process, unfortunately, I think there are a lot of individuals, especially at older ages, who you would think that they know themselves or really know what they want or really know what kind of partner they will be, but they don't. They do. Then they get into this kind of a format, right, of arranged marriage, and then they discover, oh, that's not really what I want, or oh, that's not really who I am, or and of course it leads to the divorce if they don't want to step outside of that for real. And that's the other downside of this, is that I think there are a lot of people, as you were saying, Ashley, who think they know themselves, who think they know what kind of partner they want. They say that, they probably really believe it at that time when they're talking. And then when they get that kind of person, it's like, oh yeah, no, I don't really want that. Mm-hmm. Or that didn't actually look the way I thought it was going to look, or it didn't play out the way I thought it was going to play out. And yeah, I don't want that.
One thing that I noticed too with them, though, is that for a lot of couples on the shows, we see something that helps them bond together and something that helps form that connection right away. Some, it could be childhood upbringing. Some, it could be parents' divorce. Some, it could be, lifestyle choices. And for them, they both are drawing to, oh my gosh, I want that partner, and I want to be happy with someone, and I want to be married. And I think that'll help them like bond together and come together, because they're going to really empathize with one another for it. And I think it's also going to help them want to try more in their, in this experiment during this process. And I mean, it could lead to some red flags later down the road if they like, all right, now everything becomes a little comfortable after, like, it's not new anymore. And that could give way to who they are individually to come together. And that could be red flags down the road. But I definitely think for like wanting to come together, that's really going to help them try to form a stronger connection.
One other quick thing I noticed actually while we were talking about them is the fact that she's been in so many weddings. She has a large friend group, I would assume, and is very social. I just being in that many weddings, you have to know a lot of people. Yeah. While you mentioned he seems to be a bit more hermit and closed in socially, I wonder, now that we're talking about this, like, he's going to have to go to these weddings with her if they stay together. Like, you're
married by now.
Going to all the baby's first birthdays.
Hopefully that's like everybody in the group. There's no more weddings to go to.
That's fair.
Everyone in Atlanta is married now.
That's fair.
But you're right. That could also become an issue. If one person is very social and the other one is not, there again, that could become, a point of negotiation and compromise.
Do you think that's going to be something then with like their visual representation of each other? Because I think sometimes it's one thing when you get together in like your room by yourself, like you and your partner, but then it's another thing when you're with your friends. And if one person really cares about how you perceived by their friends and how you interact with their friends by this like level of expectation they have for you, do you think that could become an issue for them then? If she's like, hey, you're, now have to be up to my friend's standard, basically.
Well, as a person who is equally introverted and extroverted, but my main go-to is being introverted, as in I'm a homebody. I like being at home. You know, I sometimes have to force myself to go out, whereas Al is very extroverted, very social. His preference would be out there, and my preference would be in here. Okay.
That's how we are too.
Yeah. So, but when I am around people or I am out there, you would not know that I'm an introvert. Let's just put it that way. You wouldn't know that because I know how to interact with people and I know how to be social. So I'm saying that to say that, while Jacob describes himself as a hermit-like person, we don't know yet what he's like on the outside. So it could be that when he gets around Haley's friends, whatever, that he will be able to be social and not come off as being, awkwardly dorky, the way he also describes himself as being a little dorky. That it won't be an awkward thing. That so that will play itself out. Too.
Yeah.
Balance.
As a self-proclaimed introvert, like I felt everything you just said. I think there's this misconception that like introversion and extroversion has some correlation with social skills, and I think it's more about like what kind of recharges you.
Right.
Where like if you're extroverted, being around other people, that kind of that's the right energy for you. Right. If you're introverted, you can be in that energy, but not as long, and you need to have some time to yourself to kind of get back up again.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like it's all of that balance. And for me, like the context of social situations totally depends. Like sometimes I could do like certain types of situations for a long period of time. Others it's just harder. Like I make myself do it, but I don't like it, Right. And so I think with him too, it's a little hard to tell. I think specifically for someone who identifies as a homebody in a pandemic who lives alone, it's like, yeah, you're going to be alone a lot right now. Like he's clearly like made a lot of effort to like make his home comfortable and like fun,
right.
But he might not be able to socialize right now because it's not, super safe. So it's hard to tell exactly what that is there, just given all the other factors. But yeah.
I was also concerned about like with friends, sometimes it's hard to like think, what is it that I want? Like who is a partner that I'm with and who I want to be with. And sometimes friends, if especially like you rely on a lot on your friend group for opinions, it could be, and there's a lot of, if it's at least 14 best friends, to be like, I don't like him. He needs to be more like this. And, or she could be like, hey, I have all these friends, but like, I'm still going to be who I want to be with, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely. Well, talking about people who have got a lot going on in their lives, I think Chris and Paige, we should talk about next. Church.
How much time do we have? He might take time.
He might do another.
He may need to be so all into himself. Oh, I don't know if I can go first. Maybe I should sit this out her last and I'll chime in to.
Oh, this is the couple. I see.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say that to me, Chris is extremely self-centered. And the existence of his significant other is for his significance. And
I like that.
And I don't look at that as a partnership. Unfortunately, and I could be wrong, and it could be a situation where, again, production might just have picked out certain things that he indicated just for the show to create that drama or whatever it is, to make it appear that he's as self-centered as the production. Right. Yeah. Because again, relationship is about partnership. It's about balance. It's about bringing things to the table that enhances the unit, and the manner in which he expressed a lot of the things that his significant other should be for him, not to him, not with him, but for him. That
scary.
Yeah. I feel for whoever that other person is. Well, in this case, we know who it is, but again, thinking about her, she has an element that I think would be conducive to that type of relationship, but he still pushed it to an extreme.
Yeah.
So,
like I said, I'm gonna go last on this one.
I guess for me, the first thing that stood out was that. So I got annoyed watching Chris talk, basically. He is so superficial in what he thinks about like his partnership, his relationship, that it irritated me so much. Like I felt it very degrading to a partner. I felt it very, I think degrading to him too, because like you are a whole person. You are not just this like little cutout that looks next to somebody, and I don't know. It's just like it gave a lot of I don't know, over importance to artificial, superficial, just perception of a relationship that I personally didn't like. But that's me personally not liking it. When I then saw Paige and was thinking about like, what do they want in partnerships and where do they want to be with the other person? I was like, okay, like maybe they will fit for each other. Again, not for me, but maybe like that's where they're at least fit each other's mold. And I don't think that Paige is the kind of person to have that like mold mentality of a partner, but Chris definitely is. And I think though that she's going to fit his, mold, and then she is going to be able to look for the partner that she wants and be able to appropriate like where is it that I want to be and who I want to be with. And I think that like could then help them work if they are getting past that Chris's superficial mentality of a partner, kind of thing. And I think then they could work with each other. I'm interested to see how it's going to go. But yeah, it was kind of, I was like, all right, I can move on to the next couple now.
Yeah.
But I'm watching it.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Sigh, exhale.
Oh boy.
Drop shoulders. Okay.
I just
The rest of this podcast is going to be a goose sighing.
cut. Okay. So his hairstyle is unique, it's an interesting style.
There's nothing good to say about somebody.
When I mentioned earlier, like some people like the title of entrepreneur, but not the work that goes. This is the personality that I was worried about. So the scene in particular when Pastor Kyle was at his place and he was mentioning, his like different brands of shoes. He's like, I have Dolce & Gabbana and this and this and this. And that just like that, like if you're an entrepreneur, you're constantly reinvesting in your business. You're constantly reinvesting in your craft. When you start spending significant amount of your money to look cool, it's just, that's a scary thing for me. Now, if he was working a normal, more typical 9 to 5, I'm fine with that. Do whatever you want to do with your money.
He's not. I thought that he was like a financial advisor or something for somebody.
Yeah.
Finance manager at a what do you say? When he moved from Florida, he had mentioned he got a 6-figure job in Atlanta for some company.
So he's working for someone.
Yes, but so this might be me looking into this too much, but typically for those type of roles, from what I'm familiar with, those are like super salesman jobs. So he has, he is working for someone, but you eat what you kill, basically. So it's feast or famine. Wow, that's a very aggressive way of saying it, but it's, if he hits a great account, he's going to be doing amazing and there's going to be a lot of money. If you don't close on a big account, you're not going to be having that much income. Similar to, so in my personal life, we've a lot of sales reps kind of have this situation where, you close a Walmart, you're doing amazing. You have plenty of money. It takes you half a year to get just a meeting, so you have to be willing to manage your money. Oh,
Sorry, dogs are fighting.
What they're doing in there. But maybe he has a different situation, so I want to be kind in that. But I got strong salesman energy where it's like I will always get this money. I'm just gonna always close. And she's a accountant, which I can identify more with. And I have a feeling the moment she sees his finances, she's gonna go, "What are you doing? Like you can't. Like where's your retirement? Where's like it's." Hopefully that's not the case, but from a lot of the stuff I'm seeing, it seems like that. And leaving a pastor religious family to go so money driven, that's not a bad thing. I love entrepreneurs. I love entrepreneurs. I love businesses. I am a capitalist through and through, but that's such a different lifestyle. And I don't know if that's rebelling. I know there's some pastors that are a little bit more financial prosperity type pastors. So maybe he comes from,
pastors.
yeah, maybe he comes from that type of family. But when he said that they weren't making great money, it makes me think that it's a more spiritual type of pastor. And if that's the case, that's so different. Like, how do you go from that to being all about the paper and living out of your car and like amazing? But that was a red flag for me. So I like Paige though a lot, and I wish her the best. Like, she seems like when she was talking about her family, and she wants to do it right. So I'm rooting for her.
Yeah.
Chris.
Individually, Paige was one of my favorite people too when I was watching all of these bios come
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm done. I'm done.
I have thoughts on both of them, but before that, Patty and Elle, I'm curious because you guys are in a religious community. You're in that world. What's your perspective on like Chris kind of leaving that environment to pursue a more like, in his words, like financially prosperous kind of environment? Like, what do you see there?
Well, where I have taught, where I spent my teaching years at a private faith-based college, then university, we tell people who are considering coming to work there that you need to feel called to do it, because we are not making the kind of money that even state-run colleges and universities make. Okay, so you can't come to teach there for money because you're not going to make any. You teach there because you feel the need to give back and to grow the programs or the discipline, or to deal with the kind of students that you're going to have. We're an HBCU, so a lot of students are first generation college students, and they're not coming from private academies where it's a college prep academy. They're not coming from a lot of places like that. So that's going to be a different kind of student. So a lot of variables when you're dealing with faith-based work. So for him to decide that he didn't want to do that meant that he didn't really feel called to do that, to me. It may have been that he was following, which children do a lot, is follow in the footsteps of their parents with what the careers that their parents have or the professions that their parents have. And it seemed like he basically just followed the path of his family into ministry, and then decided that that wasn't going to be enough for him, which is okay, because you need to, if that's the case, then he did the right thing by leaving, right? Because you can't be in true ministry and not feel called to do that, and it's not based on money. That's my feeling. What about you?
No, very true, very true. I mean, you can't have two masters. In his case, he understood what his family tradition had been, but he wanted to make some money. And as a youngster, when you get established, you feel adult, you feel grown. Well, I want to go out and make money. So I don't want to do this because I know how we have struggled. And that's assuming that there was a struggle, because he indicated that money wasn't one of the plentiful things in his upbringing. So he wanted to make some money. So he decided to go in another direction, which is fine. But that's just an element of him. And there was just so many other things that, make the complete person.
Mm-hmm.
And him as a complete person, well, I can't say a whole lot. I can't say a whole lot, regarding that, because again, he just appeared to be so driven by his limited focus on what he wants right now.
Yeah.
So I don't.
Well, I'm gonna let Ashley give her thoughts. Then I'll wrap it up.
Oh yeah, no, that's all right. Yeah, I felt like his focus on money seemed more about having other people know he had money rather than him like seeing it as like, the more money I have, the more resources I have, so I can like live my life in a way that means the most to me. I can help the people I care about. I can be have 7 kids. Like, come on. But it was very much about that outward appearance. Like Agu, you were saying, like when Cal was there, they're standing in front of his closet. Like Cal can see he's got, nice shoes in there, but he had to tell him all the brands that were in there. I couldn't even list 5 luxury brands in a row. Like that would take me all day to figure out. But like he knew exactly what he had, and he just that like that bothers me when it's like wealth for the sake of like, it's an ego thing. Then it's not like, oh, I want to be able to build something no one's ever seen before and like do some project that you just need a lot of money for, something like that. But it was all about like, people need to know that Chris is rich, like that he's loaded. And I think Paige, coming from a family that has a lot of divorce, am I correct in this, that she was the one that like her parents have been divorced several times?
Father,
which like
mother 3 times.
Yeah. Like that's really hard, like growing up like that. Like I'm a kid of divorce. I've experienced 1 divorce, I can't imagine like going through all those different things. But I think she has this expectation that like, since the experts are picking the right person for her, that it'll be completely easy. And I don't know if like part of what makes a relationship successful is, most of it really is the skills that you bring to the table of how to communicate, how to negotiate when you disagree, how to manage your own emotions and not be dependent on someone else to manage you. And, like kind of be a whole person before you come together. Yeah. And I don't know if she fully gets that she needs to work on those skills and develop those skills in the relationship as much as, oh, she's going to show up and because they picked the perfect person, there will be no problems. Therefore, there will be no divorce. And so, I don't know. They just, I hope they're good, but I just see a lot of problems that could come up with them. It's just like, it always comes back to like that very rigid thinking for me of like, you have to be this or we're done, kind of a thing. And like relationships are constant negotiation, communication. You're always changing, you're always growing, and that's fine. But like you have to be down for that.
Yeah. I guess it's my turn, huh?
Tell us.
I have a confession. Chris hit a lot of buttons for me. Like my bell, I got annoyed listening to him. Because 1, I grew up in a family of 4 boys. I'm the only girl out of 5 children. So I know maleness. And 2, I did grow up in a spiritual, faith-based family. 3, I grew up with parents from the the era of male female roles, and when you put that in a church sense, then you're talking about, when Chris used the word submissive, my hair bristled because I know how misused that word is in a church faith-based environment when it comes to men talking about their women being submissive. So all of those things just, the red flags they just popped up all over the place. And I'm going to admit that a lot of how he presented himself or how production presented him just turned me completely off. Like I was ready to just throw him out the window. And that's because in this kind of situation, you get these shortcut judgments based on what production allows you to see. So first, let me start off giving him kudos. He had a goal. He lived in his car. He understands what having nothing feels like. And now he's got what he wants. So I understand that, I have nothing. And now I have, in my estimation, everything. I have everything that I wanted to get. Therein, I think, lies some of that, I got to tell you what brands I wear. I can, get a Rolex watch if I want to. Because I lived in my car for however many months or years. Okay, so I get some of that. But the rest of it is, to me, it doesn't come across as ego feeding. I need a wife who's submissive, yet I need her to be sexy. I need her to be a freak. Okay.
Terminology.
Yeah, the terminology. I need you to be submissive, sexy, and a freak. I want a maximum of 7 kids. You don't have to carry it. You don't have to birth it. But I want 7 kids. Okay. And I see my family as a business. When he called his wife my co-CEO, but you want 7 kids, you're taking care of those kids at home. And your idea of family is we're a brand. He said that. My last name, our last name is a brand. And parenting for me is creating replications of me.
Mini me.
We're replicating ourselves. I had to write this down because I had to make sure I was using his terminology. that training your children is replicating yourself.
Minion.
Not getting to know your children for who they are, their personalities, we're replicating ourselves. There was so much wrong with how he said what he said. Yeah. And I'm hoping that he doesn't really buy into how he said what he said. I'm hoping that what he actually meant is different from how he portrayed it on camera. Because if you're already looking at your wife as a CEO, a co-CEO, that's submissive, sexy, and a freak, as Al said, that does not describe a partnership. When you want 7 kids and you're looking at your family as a business, if you're making money, if that's your ultimate goal for yourself, then you're not in the family unit helping to train the kids and bring the kids up. Okay. And then when he said that he was hoping he could have her pregnant on the honeymoon. Okay, all I heard him talk about was money and sex, money and sex, money and sex. It's money and sex. It was all about me. And you're gratifying me. I want someone who will gratify me.
Yeah. And when he said that,
Go ahead.
He said that, like, pregnant on the honeymoon, I was like, you barely even know her last name at that point. Like,
he does, because he just gave it to her.
You know he's got to take that name. She's not keeping hers.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm scared for Paige because Paige said, all I've ever wanted was to be married.
Yeah.
And Paige wants to be the first in her family whose marriage works.
Yeah.
And his setup right now is not going to allow that to happen unless she is completely submissive to his stated ideas about marriage and family.
Mm-hmm.
So he scares me.
Yeah.
And this whole journey that they're about to go on is a little scary.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's my take.
I definitely agree. There's an element of them that's very much like, it has to be the way that he says it, which I think like Paige is going to go for. Like, she seems like that kind of person to be like, all right, you steer the ship. And I mean, I have friends like that. I have like female friends and male friends that identify and are in heterosexual relationships that want that partnership. And for some, it really works because that's exactly what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely see that there are some red flags because like Paige is also an independent person. Like she is a, an independent, driven, energetic, like fun-loving, easygoing. Like she's a great person. I really liked her. And I'm worried that if she falls back to her concerns and insecurities of being raised and like seeing these divorces happen through her life, she may lose some of that, wanting so much to be in a marriage that lasts and wanting him to maybe steer that ship if like that's just words we use for now. But it definitely, I see some red flags, but like I can also see her succumbing to submissiveness because he wants it.
And remember, he's only been out of a relationship for 3 months.
3 months.
Before this whole process.
I was like, you're kidding.
So he's not even, you don't even know if this is more of a rebound thing than, for real.
And also, he's the one that we got the sound clip of in the promo where he's saying, I just found out that she's pregnant. So could he be talking about his ex, who that could be obviously referring to his sister or like somebody else who's not a part of.
Spoiler alert. There are articles out there on the internet suggesting that it is his ex.
So what does that mean then? How is that going to work into your whole brand family?
I'm just saying they're out on the internet. I'm not saying it's true or not.
Ooh.
But that I recently saw that floating out on the internet. And
Wow.
So they have to have at least one really messy relationship.
This is the one.
I don't want to watch those ones.
I know.
And again, that brings us back to how thorough is the vetting? How much can you really find out from the person who you're asking about these things to tell you honestly where they are, what's going on? I mean, you can't depend on anything else other than what they say.
I have a few friends that come from arranged marriages cultures, and a few of them have been already arranged married at this point. And the one thing I have a difficulty watching sometimes with this show is I see my friends go through arranged marriages, and I see that is a whole process. They don't find a suitor today and then get married tomorrow. Mm-hmm. No, they have families invested. They have opinions from other people that have grown up with them and seen them go through these difficult life challenges. And they also go through an engagement process that leads up to the wedding ceremony. And I know there's a lot of opinions on arranged marriages, especially in the US, but I've seen my friends go through this product of arranged marriages that can actually work. But then I see this premise where you're only being interviewed by yourself, and experts, I mean, I wish them the best every single time I see them be arranged, and experts have the best intentions, but even the experts don't fully interview. They are going off of what you tell them and rating based off of their own expertise in accordance with that. And so I see stuff like this and I'm like, can you please get some more opinions in there, please, about these individuals, who they really are, what's good for them, what's bad for them, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and Married at First Sight describes itself as a modern take on arranged marriage. Yeah. Modern being American.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Quick fast,
Uh,
and instant gratification.
The McDonald's of arranged marriages.
Yeah.
Pull up, I'll take a number 3. Thank you.
Yeah. And so again, that's the downside of this particular, process.
Yeah.
So of course, we wish Chris and Paige the best, but I don't hold out confidence that that's really going to evolve into a positive, strong relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first, before I hop in, if you don't mind me asking, Al, wanted to get your opinion on them as well. You touched upon them a little bit. I could tell that you didn't want to say too much because you had a lot of thoughts.
I pretty much was. Again, from a male perspective, again, I do have a different skew on what I think a partnership is, from a typical, stereotypical male point of view. Because I do believe in balance. I do believe in equity, So, when you talk about the breadwinner or whatever, what is yours, what is mine, it's ours.
Right.
Initially, when we came for Patty to work here, she was the breadwinner. I stayed home for a few months,
with a newborn baby,
a brand new baby, So it was doing whatever was necessary to make the relationship and the current situation work. I don't believe that there's a mindset of balance in this current situation from the perceived or projected Chris's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't look at this world as being a male dominated world, because if it were not for women, we wouldn't be where we are today, and it's not like I'm a feminist or anything like that, but maybe I am.
You kind of are.
Okay. I come from an environment of strong women. Not that they excluded men by any means, otherwise we wouldn't have replication. But it was about making the situation work. And I believe I've taken on that mentality of making things work. When Patty said, I've done my 20 years, I really want to try and do what I do. And I've seen her passion. I've seen what she has wanted to do for herself, because she's an extremely talented individual, and to do something or be in an environment that doesn't provide you pleasure. You can't put a dollar figure on that. You just can't. And I said, well, go ahead. I'll find a way to make this work. We will find a way to make this work. And fortunately, we've been blessed, and it has. So I don't believe that there's any place for you do what I say, or this is our plan. My plan is our plan, and this is how we're going to execute it. You're taking, to me, you're depriving a person of their opportunity to bring what they have to the table to enhance the overall picture. Because again, we are individuals. We came into this world as individuals. We're going to go out as individuals, and there has to be agreement between those who unify to enhance their situation. Otherwise, it's going to be a underachieved existence. You won't reach your potential if you don't allow both parties to do what they're capable of doing. Even if it is just to see. Because again, everything isn't mapped out where it's going to be successful. But if nothing else, my concept, and this is just me, my former coach mentality, there's two options to whatever your experience is. You win or you learn. And that to me is a concept of how you move forward, because you probably learn more from what is termed losing. So I even look at that as lessons learned on what not to do. You know, they talk about uh, electricity. I mean, the light had 1,000 failures before it became light. You know, but just that one success is all that we know. I mean, it changed the world. But how many times did failure occur before it became a reality? And you know, that's how I feel life is, because there is no perfection in the life that we're living. You know, but there is there, for lack of a better term, there's a perfect effort that can be put forth to achieve and grow and have the best lifestyle possible for everyone to progress in. So that's just me and my philosophy.
I feel like going for a tackle now or something, Coach.
Let's go.
Let's do this.
Motivated and inspired.
Just the submissive word in particular, that was the problem for me. Similar, I have a background, very traditional African background with a lot of my family, and sometimes I've noticed when people are seeking that type of submissive, it's because they're not confident in their own skills and decisions, right? Like if you know you're making the right decision, you can convince your partner by laying out why you're doing this decision. And then if you're with a partner that you believe in, who's smart, just as smart as you, she or he can look at the facts and go, yeah, let's go that way. When you have to go, you will do this or else, that's a cop out. Like you clearly aren't confident. You're just going with that because you think that's the right thing. And that scares me when I see there's nothing wrong with finding a submissive, quote unquote, partner, but it's when you try to use that as a cop out because you don't want to have the talk. Like you need to be able to talk with your partner and explain to them why you're going that way. And that whole boss mentality, you do what I say because I'm the boss. The really good bosses aren't like that. They have a team of people. Some of the most successful entrepreneurs we have it's not a single person. It's a team of a dozen, 2 dozen, whatever that makes that work. And like I think that's the thing that people forget when they go into that whole entrepreneur, I'm going to be the boss. It's like you have to take your employees, you have to take your contractors, your collaborators' word for things because you don't have time to do everything. There's too much stuff. So I'm with you. I'm very concerned. I wish them the best, and I think if anyone is going to make this work, I can see Paige. She seems like she has that willingness to try. So fingers crossed.
Well,
fingers crossed.
there's 2 word marriages. There's love and respect, and I think there's submission and compassion. Whereas a woman, as they indicate, should be submissive to their husband, a man should have compassion for the wife and their role in that family unit. Because just like the boss and employees, boss often doesn't get hands-on experience, but he has to know what is needed by those who have the hands-on experience to ensure that the ship is always righted and that it's on the path that they've agreed to, move in. So in providing, it's not just maybe throwing money at the situation or whatever the case may be. No, there may be a need for break time. There may be a need for your intellect to match up and see how raising the children, doesn't always just need mom's perspective on how things are done, although mothers do great because they've had to. But men, we have to realize that there's a certain element that, for the most part, has been missed in a lot of our family dynamics that I don't believe we even realize that's not being brought to the table. And we have more to offer than the paycheck. I mean, so much more. So because there's so many more women whose paycheck look a whole lot better than ours. So, okay, if that's the case, then what are you bringing to the table? So it's a balance. It's a balance that is necessary. That as men, we need to think about all that we are capable of bringing to a relationship. And I know that there's some macho guys out there that's like, shoot that guy, but I could care less. I mean, because again, when it comes down to partnership, that's what partners are about. It's not about just being submissive and dominant.
Well, okay. See, I was trying to be quiet. I know we got two other couples to get to, and time is of the essence. But and this could be its own podcast too. The whole submissive thing. Now let's be clear. That came out of the Bible. Okay, and that's where that has come throughout the evolution of the United States and its whole, basing itself on religious values. Okay, but when you really understand how the Bible talks about it and what it means, it is nothing like what we've created it to mean in this society between male and female roles. It is nothing like that, which is why it pushes my buttons for people to say that and be using it in a perverted way in order to talk about male dominance, because that is not what the real act of submission from a biblical standpoint means. It looks nothing like that. And I'm just going to leave it there. Okay. Because like I said, we could go on and on about this right here. But I need to let people know that as a submissive wife, it doesn't mean dominance, power, and, kowtowing and just saying, yes, sir. That's not what that means. Okay.
And so John Gottman is an expert who has done a lot of research on relationships over the course of decades. And he talks about influencing in the partnership and being open to being influenced, but that has to come both ways. That is not just one person being influenced and one person influencing the entire time. It's one to the other, and also being open and communicative about that to, hey, this may not be the best course of action that you wanted to choose, but for the sake of the partnership, you're open to being influenced.
So we'll have the podcast on them specifically for sure at some point.
Like what to learn from Chris and, specifically Chris and Paige. We'll see. I mean, we'll see. It could work out. We don't know.
Season,
Hopefully he proves us wrong. I really hope so. Hopefully he turns into a, oh my goodness, I forgot his name already. Not Miles. Woody. He turns into a Woody, and just surprises us the next episode.
Yes.
Which, I'm excited. So in the preview they gave for the next episode, that's going to be about the kickoff. You see Amani and Woody are talking in it. So I'm curious.
Yeah, they're part of it. They can tell everyone what not to do, what to do. All right. Well, since we've given Chris and Paige some time now, let's transition over to Eric and Virginia. So Eric is our first-time divorcee who is being put through the Married at First Sight process. So he's, it sounds like he's been divorced for several years, doesn't really have contact with his ex anymore. That's done. He's the pilot and involved in the Air Force. So that's his career is obviously a huge part of his life. And it sounds like that was a big part of his previous marriage too, where he was gone a lot. And then we have Virginia, who's 26. So we have another age difference here. She seems very energetic, very down for this process, very enthusiastic about it. And I think just from like first glances, I was like, oh, I could see at a high level how like this dynamic could work pretty well. But honestly, just to not bury the lead here, like I think his job is the biggest problem, just because being around someone physically, it has such a big impact in a relationship, especially when you're starting it. So I worry about that part of it. But I'll just open it up. How do we feel about Eric and Virginia?
Believe it or not, I thought that because of the age difference and because of the diversity of their lifestyles, that initially his job could be beneficial to her and her lifestyle. For the simple
Okay.
fact that she puts a lot of time into her friends and the weekend hanging out and so on and so forth. Okay, now you're moving into a marriage. It's not going to be such a drastic, immediate change of venue because I have to, provide this attention to my husband who I now have, and my life is going to change so much. Well, due to the fact that he travels as frequently as he does as a pilot, he's not going to be there. So she's not going to have to make that severe change in her lifestyle and, for lack of a better term, exclude her friends. So during the time that he's gone doing his job, when he comes home, she's there. When he's gone, she still has, her lifestyle that she's familiar with, her comfort zone that she doesn't have to necessarily give up. So I think that, and as being as young as she is, I think that can be a gradual progression that she can adapt to, and that's my concept and understanding this diversity. Him being 34, he understands what his responsibilities are, and he achieved it at the expense of his first marriage. Mm-hmm. So now I think he's more amenable and adaptable, understanding what his job requirements are. He knows that when he comes home, he's got to give what he needs to his relationship. She has the opportunity, because of his travel, to move into the marriage, I guess, gradually, so to speak, and not forfeit all that she's known throughout her past.
And yet, I see that as a problem. I mean, all of that is true. But then what happens when he's home and now she's got to, it could be a problem. It could be good that she can move into a marriage lifestyle gradually, but it could also hinder their ability to bond the way they need to. Unless now that he's achieved all the levels in the Air Force and everything that he wanted to achieve, that it's not quite as taxing on him, But I think for her being such a party girl, that's how she described herself. We like to go out, we like to drink, get drunk, have fun. That's that, drink, get drunk, have fun. Yeah. That, at 26, that's what you do. Mm-hmm. That's what some people do. And at 34, having been married before, I don't know. I think that her bringing it down, and I was seeing her more like Woody Agu, that whole party vibe, like to go out, have fun, hang out with my friends. Yeah. I'm hoping that she's like him in that once she, gets married, that she'll be wanting to make that change. Mm-hmm. If the gradual change means that it's better for her, great. But I hope that it doesn't become an obstacle, because it will take them longer to bond and make that intimate connection if he's still having to travel as much as he does.
Mm-hmm. I thought for them, there are some things I liked, which was, hey, they balance each other out in their energy wise. But then I wasn't sure if that was an extreme either, because she's like on one end of the spectrum, going out with her friends, and he's like on the other end of the spectrum, like, I just want to fly my plane all the time, and like, and I was wondering if, that could be fun for them and coming together, because like, that's also a fun experience to like be in a private plane with somebody. That's, that can also be fun in her eyes. but I was worried that maybe they're a little too far opposite of the energy spectrum. And then the other thing that was a red flag for me seeing them together was when she talked about her concerns in being abandoned and that like connection that she needs with someone and a partner. And I saw that as a pilot. So I have a neighbor that's a pilot, and I also have, you talk about being in the reserve and being deployed. I come from a big military family, and seeing that partner leave for an extended period of time, that partner that stays back has to be very strong and has to be able to go without concern of that partner leaving them while they're abroad or while they're gone or when they come back. And I was worried that maybe for her it could be a little much. I mean, a pilot, like, you're not gone for 6 months at a time like deployment, but he has been deployed. And I'm worried that maybe she could see that as like, if she gets in her own head overthinking it, is like, oh my gosh, like, he doesn't want to be with me, he's abandoning me, he doesn't want to, like we saw in previous seasons with Katie, for example, when Matt would, am I saying, no, Amber's her name, but and
Mhm.
would stay home and Matt wouldn't come back for the night. I'm worried that she may fall into that self-doubt if she is alone for those days where he has to be gone, and stay the night in another city because he has to fly back in the next morning as a pilot. And so I was worried that for them, but I also want to caveat that is that he, as we've talked about, has been in a marriage before, realizes his responsibilities and compromises and the work to put forward in it. And he may just realize that in her right away and is like, all right, I know how to handle this. I'm here. So I think there's some pros and cons to them. I'm interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, so I don't know any pilots in my personal life. I do know, well, used to be a lot closer with a few flight attendants, and the one other flight attendant that is in this season that we will talk about next, probably, they're like that, very outgoing, party-like, and it's hard to like maintain firm relationships, I think, when you're constantly traveling, constantly seeing people, constantly getting hit on. If you're a flight attendant, that's a thing that happens quite a bit. Like, I think that's an element. And it's funny, he mentioned, I have some pilots who have like wives and different, like, that's a stereotype for a reason, but he seems so genuine and so, like, I really liked his interview. I totally understand why they picked him. Very level-headed, and just like, he knew what was the reason that he was in that situation, and he learned from it. And I think he is going to make a great husband. Similar to, it seems like we're all saying this, I am a little more concerned on her just because she seems younger.
Mm-hmm.
I could see in her in 3 or 4 years. At 26, I was also, well, maybe not as much, but 25, I was definitely drinking and having fun. And I'm not one to judge. I've stumbled home very drunk and whatnot off the Uber.
Made it home?
So I made it home. I never drive. Ubers for the Ubers all the way. But so also, yes, I did make it home. So that could definitely be a thing with them. But yeah, I couldn't get that much of her personality. I just got fun girl from her. Hopefully we get to see a little bit more.
Yeah.
Going forward.
Yeah, I felt like I couldn't get a good read on her. She just kind of seemed like generic party girl to me, of like, living kind of the single life and very social and going out and all that kind of stuff. I think that's totally natural for that age. I get that when the experts are talking about like why they are putting her with him, it was kind of like, oh, she'll kind of bring this like fun, younger energy and like kind of add in that more playful kind of thing into his life. And to me, that's kind of like I don't see a lot of the reasons why like they as two specific individuals should be together, but I think that could just be how she comes off in like interviews and like the 5 minutes of screen time we get with her asking like really high level questions. So I don't know how much weight to put into that. I don't know. So I'm not really sure about her. He seems very earnest. He does seem pretty self-aware, like able to admit past mistakes and the like his past marriage and like understanding like why things didn't work out. I wonder the specifics of like how much time he's actually gone because I know the like little I do know about like being a pilot and like flight attendant is the longer that you're with a certain company, the better your schedule gets, so you have more control over it. So if he's been in that career for a long time, has gotten to a certain level, maybe yes, he travels a lot, but maybe it's like 1 or 2 nights a week or something. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Like it could be anything, so it's hard to say. But as someone who like, you know, one of my love languages is quality time, that would be really hard to have like a partner gone all the time. And, you know, like, especially when you're starting out, I'm wondering how much he's going to actually be around and how his career is going to interact with their new relationship. So we'll see. I don't know. It seems like maybe fine, maybe not. I just don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, COVID really affected the airline industry quite a bit. So, you know, he hopefully I'm hoping his job is secure and safe, but there has been quite a bit of cutbacks. So maybe his hours are going to be more reduced or something, and he'll be home more than he typically would, hopefully.
It's not a job you can do remotely, so.
What do you mean?
Or owning his own plane could even beef up his opportunity if, you know, that's the case where he's let go from the airline, that he can do private charters or something along those lines.
Yeah. Like he has a very sought after skill. Like that's, you shouldn't have a problem finding work. It's just what works for the lifestyle that you want. So we'll see. All right. Last but not least, we have Ryan and Clara, which I am just rooting for them because we don't see a lot of interracial couples on this show. And like, spoiler alert, I'm in an interracial relationship and it's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily relate to Clara very much, really at all, but I mean, at the very least, having like a little bit of like that type of relationship representation is pretty cool.
So maybe you should go first then this time.
Okay. I'll just start with I like Ryan a lot. He seems very earnest. He seems I don't know, he just seems like he's kind of ready for this. He's thought about it a lot. He has like a very, very regimented kind of lifestyle that I think, you know, could be benefited by having a partner to kind of like bring in new things, some new energy. Like I think he was the one that was like, I have the same smoothie every morning. Like I do 2 to 3 hours of working out every night. And I'm like, that's probably going to change, bud. Like you're going to have some like free time for your person. And, you know, so like, I think he could be a really, really great person for that. He seems, sorry, dog. He seems very empathetic and, like he talks about like growing up in a community where he was like one of just a couple like kids of color in school and like how he's just kind of had to be like in that environment. And then I that's not my experience, so I can't speak to that. But like I would think that fosters a lot of empathy and like in the independence and that kind of thing. So I feel like he has a lot to give. With Clara, she just kind of comes off as like kind of fake party girl to me. I don't really know what, like she was the one that had like Jello shots in her fridge, which like, I'm like, okay, like it's not like a marriage can't exist with somebody who makes Jello shots, but like we're in a different life stage right now than we're talking about. So like, how is this gonna go? And I don't know. I didn't get that same level of like emotional maturity and like earnestness from her. And so I just hope that she's going to take it seriously and give it her best shot and be a good partner to him. It's early, we'll see. So I don't know what y'all think.
Well, excuse me, if I'm not mistaken, and I understand your point, the Jello shots were a request from someone for a party or something like that. That wasn't her normal consumption. That
Like,
out of her refrigerator.
Morning Jello shots.
But I think her diversity, her experiences, bring a certain comfort to that type of relationship for the simple fact that she's experienced, all spectrums of nationalities, so to speak, or ethnicities. Him being a product of a mixed relationship as well. He has somewhat more of a conservative outlook on life for the simple fact that he's had to negotiate and navigate certain things. I myself have been in a predominantly Black environment for the simple fact that I work at an HBCU, but my schooling and upbringing has been in some predominantly white private institutions and things of that nature, where I've had to kind of navigate through biracial situations and alternative situations where, trying to figure this out as a youngster, made me more adaptable to whatever situations I now find myself in. So I think both of them, because of their experiences, bring a type of freedom to their connection that neither one of them really have to really concern themselves with because of the lifestyle that they've already led. It's just literally about focusing on each other. And I think because of their experiences, that's all they have to really deal with. Once they realize, because again, this new blindfold situation, they don't get to see each other until they're literally right in front of one another. I think that almost, once they open their eyes, kind of will have a I guess, for lack of a better term, of freedom. Once they see each other, it's like, I just need to get to know you, and it's not, totally abstract and so abnormal that, they can't be their genuine selves. So that's me.
I didn't really get a read on her. I felt about her what you guys said about Virginia, because literally on my notes, all I have next to her name is flight attendant. Yeah. And the fact that she likes guys with flavor. That's all I got. So I don't, I did, see him as being, extremely rigid, just
conservative.
And say he grew up in a predominantly white, rural, conservative environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that'll
do.
But so I with them, I'm just waiting to see how it unfolds. Because I really I couldn't get a read on her as described by herself, because it didn't seem like she talked a lot about herself or her background.
It felt very fluffy kind of stuff that she was saying.
So so for me, it would be a thing of, what will her evolution be like through this process that we get to see, and then how will that integrate or mesh with what we already know about him.
So I personally, there are some things that when someone brings up, I just like automatic triggers for me, like saying the word picky. And for me, every single time someone has tried to self-proclaim how amazing dater I am, I don't like that. And so when she was talking about how racially agnostic I am to dating, I was like, oh, please, like, don't try to be this self-proclaimed, like, and I was a little turned off by that comment. And then in addition to that, when she kept like trying to like boast herself, talking about activism is so important to her, and like hey, please, like be active. Like there are definitely things that we all need to support, but it seemed a little bit forced for me. And maybe, you know, interview, you're trying to put your best foot forward. You want to make sure to mention everything, you know, to make you look good. But I wasn't sure. So I'm curious to see as we get to know her more, are these things that actually stick around? Or is this something you wanted to mention in the interview, make sure people know about you up front, and then it's like, all right, cool, thanks, you know, bye. So I'm interested to see how they develop. But from the bat, her vibes, they didn't really seem genuine, like you were saying, Ashley. I didn't really see that in her. But from Ryan, he gave me also vibes from, I'm forgetting everybody's name, but previous
from a different season.
What? Previous season.
From previous season.
Yeah, they had a baby right away, and they're Southern.
Oh, Bobby and Danielle.
Bobby, thank you.
Yeah.
That's the vibe I got from him. And like, hey, maybe that's just his lifestyle, and that's like he knows what he wants, and this is him, and cool. But like that's all I got.
That's a great point. He's definitely the mixed Bobby. That was my initial thoughts too. You mentioned it in the interview when she said like protesting. I'm like, do you feel like you have to say that if you're dating, you know, someone outside of your race? But I then put myself in their shoes, and I think like she knows that she's dating someone outside of her race. Like the amount of questions she received that were dating outside of your race related. And I have a feeling during the interview, they were specifically trying to touch upon race related things, right? So like when she said the whole data, the color of the rainbow thing, like that feels like in her first interview, she mentioned it. Like from what I've read out the process, you have multiple interviews. Mm-hmm. She had to repeat that line multiple times. And that's what I'm trying to tell myself, because if she just threw that out of nowhere, I like the fear is like it's a fetish thing. So I get why people would be like, that's weird. But I think she just had to say that because that's all the questions she received. That's me giving her the benefit of the doubt. So I there's that. And then in terms of him, I think he is, like you said, a Bobby, definitely. Like the Southern gentleman, very, you know, all-American football and like barbecues with the family. Like he seems, the hair is a bit weird to me. Maybe I'm
another hair comment.
But like, what's with the
big weird? Yeah.
It was a little weird to me too.
It's a modern take on a mohawk.
It's a mohawk that's sleeping.
Yeah.
I've done weird stuff with my hair. I can't judge, but I'm like, that's okay. That's interesting. So I think he is ready for this process. And if you're going to pick someone for the first interracial contestant on the show, I think he's actually a good choice. He's ambiguous enough that I had no idea what he was. I'm like, I don't know if you're Black or Hispanic, or like he's everything, you know. So there's that. He's very wholesome from his interview. So I think I could see them working out. Just seeing more of her personalities. And then the ending portion where she talked about the whole booty call, an ex reaching out. Mm-hmm. She used the term he wanted to read a book, which I've never heard someone refer to booty call as that before. I don't know if that's a Southern thing.
Not that we know of. We're in Alabama.
And I'm old, so I never
hadn't heard that phrase.